So welcome, everybody, and thanks for coming back to our second podcast.
Yeah. And for those of you who are new to Jeff's channel, I'm Ella, Jeff's assistant, and Jeff has been practicing astrology for over 47 years.
Has it been that long? Wow.
It's been that long, and it's awesome. Oh. It's so awesome.
Yeah.
So gosh, today.
Is that why I'm getting more gray hairs at certain places? Yeah. Okay. Good.
Maybe. I mean, gray hairs are the best.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you like them.
Yeah, I do. So today, Jeff, we wanted to go into and talk about, is the world on the brink of nuclear war, right?
Oh,
so intense topic, obviously.
Good question. Yeah. I
mean, everybody's worried about it. Everybody's concerned about it.
As well they should be. Yeah.
Right. And Tulsi Gabbard was on Tucker on Fox News the other night, and she was warning of the dangers of this escalating into World War III, which is crazy. I can't even believe the words that just came out of my mouth.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Where we're at.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought this up, because this is a question I've been asked a lot by a lot of different clients, and myself have been interested too. I've heard many of the generals, Keating and Petraeus. I was kind of stunned the other day listening to Petraeus actually saying, well, we'll just take out Putin's whole fleet if we do that. And there's a lot of interesting cues here when you look at this, because essentially, I personally believe we do have the capability far beyond nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons, you've got to remember, that was close to 90 years ago when all this came about. We have directed energy weapons, I hear. We have very sophisticated stuff, particle beam weapons, all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's like Star Wars. And I think we have a lot more than that, stuff we've never even heard of. And it's kind of scary. And that's why I think the so-called quote unquote military industrial complex and the owners funding them above that are a lot more brazen and cocky than ever before. So one of the things I did in looking at this from an astrological standpoint is, okay, are we going to have some type of a nuclear exchange, or would it be possible? So I'm going to share the screen here. This might look a little crazy if you're not familiar with astrology, but those who are, I'll show it to you. So when I share my screen, you'll see here that I'm going to go over to something known as interrogation astrology. Now, with that being said, before I show you the chart, a lot of astrologers rightly look at, Putin's chart, they'll look at Biden's chart, they'll look at all this. I did that, but here's my take on this. And I hope I'm right, because when you see what I'm about to show you, I hope it's right. Looking at the presidents, I don't believe presidents run this place. I really don't. I think the owners run it. Though the presidents in the end do have the power to push the button, and they have the nuclear codes and the football and all that happy stuff. But I think there's a lot more control mechanisms in place on something of this magnitude than just some guy who's about to turn 80 years old who can carry on a sentence in front of a teleprompter reading it. So I have a little confidence in that. But here's what I did. And rather than look at everyone's birth charts, I thought, well, it'd be a much wiser thing to do something known as interrogation astrology. And for anybody that doesn't know, interrogation astrology is really something known as asking questions. See, there's many types of astrology. There's natal. This is most people's birth charts and, all the cycles that are going on today. Very accurate. Location astrology is amazing, but interrogation is probably one of the most used tools in the ancient world. When people would go to the court astrologer, meaning the king's astrologer or the local astrologer in ancient times, they didn't know their birth times. They just simply asked a question. Is it in my best interest to marry so-and-so or do this or do that? So I use interrogation a lot. If you ever get around Indian astrologers, they call it prashna. Prashna is synonymous. It means the same thing. Or judicial is another word. And the word that's used most today, and I don't like it at all, it's called horary. It's a Latinized term that means of the hour, meaning when you break your mind. So interrogation astrology is actually quite magical because it proves the earth is an interactive consciousness. So enough details on what astrology is and all that. So let's get to, what does it say? Are we going to go up in mushroom clouds here, or do we have a chance that our learned leaders aren't going to destroy us? So what I did is I literally cast a chart. In fact, Ella, you were on the phone with me last night when we cast this chart.
Yeah.
And, okay, here we go. I've got the chart up. So again, just to be clear to everybody, rather than look at all the presidents who really don't run this place anyhow, the owners do, and to see whether or not we're really going to have nuclear war, I cast something known as an interrogation or a prashna. The eastern horizon becomes the querent, which in this case, it's really not just me, it's all of us. I mean, do all of us care whether there's nuclear war or not? I think so.
Right. It's all of us collectively
ubiquitous, right?
This question.
You bet. So in that, you would also include the U.S., and of course, for any of those listening around the world, you would be included too. In other words, is humanity going to be destroyed? Because we're all part of this. We're all together, right? So the eastern horizon is Gemini ascending, and that rules Mercury. And Mercury just went direct. So that's an indication that things have really been askew. Any foreign entity or opponent in a war is the seventh house. Now, granted, we know this war, we're told, is between Vladimir Putin and what's his name, Zelensky, right? In Ukraine. Personally, I think the U.S. is fighting a proxy war, or at least the owners above the pyramid are fighting a proxy war. We're pouring billions of dollars into Ukraine. Ukraine probably wouldn't last very long at all if the United States wasn't pouring money into the war machine. Yeah. We're handing them all kinds of ammunition and training, et cetera, et cetera. We're fueling Ukraine. Ukraine is like a boxer who's staggering, and we just keep propping him back up. Right here's the gloves, kid. Hit him again. Here's some, here's a steel bar in your fist so you can punch him some more. So the seventh house would be Russia, and collectively, Ukraine and the United States would be the eastern horizon from my viewpoint. Here's the good news, folks. If there were now, you see Mars is in the ascendant, plain English. That means there's a lot of aggression that they're not telling us about that is being foisted upon this situation from the Ukraine and United States sides. Now, I'm not taking sides here, and I want to get into politics. I want to stick to astrology. But my interpretation of this is there's some very aggressive behavior, even though it's horrible, all these people are getting killed and all these soldiers. But I don't believe everything the news tells me either. I mean, we haven't been there. And it's very interesting. Many of our diplomats seem to be able to fly over there during a major war and not have any danger. So long story short, this tends to look like no, there's not going to be a nuclear war. Why? The all-important moon was void of course. Now, that's a strange term astrologers use. That means that the moon is not making any aspects before it leaves the sign, except it was about to leave the sign. There's only 30 degrees per sign. You can see the moon's at 2947. So when it did leave the sign, what's the next aspect? Translation of light. That's called like a baton race. That's where the moon makes aspect to one planet signifactor in the question, which happened to be Mercury, which is us, the world. Are we going to go up in a mushroom cloud? And the seventh house lord, which would be the enemy, which in this case, everybody's looking at Vladimir Putin, right? So I would tend to say this chart says no. So sorry about all the details in astrology. I do like to point out a little bit that I'm not just channeling Zulu from Zeton here, that I'm actually...
It's awesome that you break it down this way.
Yeah, I mean, at least you can see that, well, it's geometry. This is astronomy, folks, not astrology. This isn't smoke and mirrors. This isn't beads and incense, even though they're fine. Sometimes the incense, I love incense. It clears the place out. But on the other hand, it is really science. It is an astronomical science. And even if you don't believe this, I find, well, Ella, you and I have seen, and so many thousands of clients I've worked with, the accuracy of this stuff is
it's beyond accurate.
It's so accurate, it's creepy. It's amazing.
Especially in the interrogations.
Yeah, the interrogations are really amazing, especially in stuff like this. So, folks, that's my answer about, are we going to see a nuclear exchange anytime real soon here? The answer looks like no. It looks like it'll be mitigated, or something will play itself out in a positive way. And the reason why the moon is making an aspect called trines and sextiles. Mm-hmm. Now, that just in simple terms means 120-degree aspects and 60-degree aspects, and they're friendly. They're friendly. See, when the moon moves into Gemini, that's an air sign. It's going to sextile Jupiter in a fire sign. So it's heated, no doubt. There's war, folks. People are dying, and it's horrible. Right. War, I don't find any part of war. George Carlin might have been right. He said, war is when old men in business suits send young men off to war to die for their business interests. And he was absolutely right.
Absolutely right.
It's a war machine. I mean, these people are making fortunes, these politicians, on the back end of these deals. I mean, my God, billions of dollars. I mean, it's horrible.
It's just horrible. And that could be part of the reason why Mars is in the ascendant, right? It's showing that.
That is the reason. Well, clearly. Clearly, Mars is always a planet of aggression, war. So there's some really aggressive, pushy behavior here going on. And we don't need the chart to tell us that, but the chart mirrors that reality.
Yeah.
But here's even taking that, Ella, if you go forward, notice the next aspect. Mars is separating. So that's OS14. That means it's separating. Right. So this is called an aspect grid. So it's separating from the tricky bamboozlement of Neptune. See, Neptune and Mars always is subterfuge. Anytime you get those in hard aspects are the 90-degree squares, hence why you see a square there. So this is really like a language. Yeah. Remember when we were all little kids, and the first time they shoved the book in front of us and mom was reading us little stories in bed? It's like, you don't even know what it means, right? But then all of a sudden you start understanding the language. It starts making sense. So this is, again, a science of astronomy. It's not woo-woo stuff and all that. It's very, very linear. And that's what attracted me to it. So my read is, folks, in fact, Mars also sextiles Venus. And astrology gets really complex, or astronomy. See, if you have to run the chart forward, because planets are moving at different speeds, that's their orbital velocities, right? So they interact in a very exceedingly complex way. Well, here's the good news. Venus sextiles trines that Mars in the ascendant first. And what is that? Well, that's definitely hidden secret things, the Lord of the 12th and the Lord of the 5th. But the Venus is in the 5th house, which means even though this is a horrible situation, I don't see it turning out in nuclear holocaust. And if I'm wrong, I'm going to see you all on the astral plane, and we'll all get together and talk about it. Now, I hope this chart is right, because my job is to do an accurate, interpretation of this.
Yeah, that's my take. I'm sure it is, and it's interesting because this is an interactive consciousness, right? So when you ask a question, the planets are interacting with us.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that in the astrology.
Oh, yeah. And I don't think they could be interacting more with meaning than, are we all going to die? And even if we didn't die, I mean, we know all these politicians and all these world leaders, they got bunkers, they got food supplies. They
have places, secure places to run to. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we sit out here and choke to death from radiation and get cancer and die. So this is a very high gravity question.
Yes, it is.
It's very, I mean, what are you going to do with your loved ones and people we love and ourselves? I mean, you won't be able to grow food if there's a nuclear exchange. See, this is why the chart supports what I said earlier. When you look at Petraeus and some of these generals, they're very well aware of what we have. I have clients in the military. They won't tell me everything, but I hear enough to know that we've got some stuff that is so powerful. It's creepy. I could tell you things about power plants that I've heard, nuclear power plants, like one of them's the Palo Verde over there. There's enough power to run the entire Western United States out of that power plant. They won't tell you so, but they do. There's multiple silos there, nuclear silos. What are they doing with all this power? Look at the aircraft carriers. We are the only country who has aircraft carriers with multiple nuclear reactors on. What are they doing with that kind of power? I mean, these are directed energy weapons. We are talking about particle beam stuff, lasers, very, very sophisticated stuff. I think the only country on the seas who has a nuclear powered aircraft carrier is France. And that thing is like a little toy boat compared to the 1970s class aircraft carriers. I mean, the United States, China can't even get a fully loaded fighter off the decks. They're running turbine and I think some kind of oil and gasoline turbine aircraft carriers. They're a joke compared to the stuff that we have. And, you know, this again, welcome to the owners. When you have the power to print the money, we're blessed that we're clearly in one of the most powerful militaries ever constructed in modern history that we know of. Maybe Atlantis might have done that. But my point is, and this is to the importance of this podcast, is are we all going to go up in a mushroom cloud, or worse yet, are we all going to die a slow, painful death with radiation and, the horrible things that we saw in Japan? My take is no. My take is no. Even the sun is beholding that Mars in the ascendant with a trine. And the fourth house is always outcomes of matters. And the fact that Mercury rules the Lord of the fourth and the moon translates light between Jupiter and Mercury, highly improbable based on this chart.
Positive outcome.
It's a positive outcome. And thank God, let's hope. Again, to that note, speaking of which, I have heard a lot of people, very intelligent military people, not just people in the lower ranks, but people who really know what they're doing, have said that there's a lot of extraterrestrial / they could even be angelic, we don't know, orbs around installations and very sophisticated equipment. And afterwards, they're replacing circuit boards. It doesn't work. So there's something very mysterious going on. And I also, I think it was over at Fox Studios, I ran into a guy. I don't want to mention too much. I don't want to get him in trouble, but he's really in an elite group in the military. I'll just say that. And he was telling me of the craft that they're tracking right off the coast of Malibu. There's this huge cavern underneath Point Azuma Beach. It's called Point Doom, it's where I Dream of Jeannie was filmed. That Gilligan's Island had a scene there. Remember?
Zuma Beach, right there.
Zuma Beach, yeah. And there's this huge cavern underneath there. That's they've known about it for a long time. I was actually teaching a physics class in a college, and one of my students back in the 80s was telling me his father was an admiral, and they were taking submarines underneath the California coast almost all the way to Salt Lake City, Utah. So there's a lot going on here that we don't know about. A lot going on. And this guy in the military was telling me his elite team is tracking crafts coming out of these portals underneath this big cavern underneath the Malibu coast here. And they said the velocity is so fast, they can almost not measure it from when they leave the water to exiting the atmosphere. And we have nothing of that velocity. So for what that's worth, I personally believe, the divine is far above any of these demonic bastards doing what they're doing. Yeah. And I think the chart supports this, that that we're not, and that's not to say that they're not going to cause a lot of trouble. Look at Mars in the ascendant. That's always an omen of intensity. Right. And I do believe, the trouble that these people cause, they make money from war. War is business. And it really is. I think it was one of the Rothschilds said, I make more in one day of war than I do in a year of peace.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. Watch the movie Lord of War with Nicolas Cage. That's actually based on a true story about Russia breaking up, and all this nuclear weaponry was divided and sold in the black markets. And that's true. That stuff was going on. And I'm really impressed that so far we haven't seen a dirty bomb, or that someone's made off with some fairly enriched uranium and, because if Iran gets their paws on a nuclear weapon, they'll use it. They'll use it, because they're all going to Allah, right? So, but anyways, it's a scary time, folks. It's a really scary time.
It's a very scary time. And for me, the astrology has always been a comfort to me, no matter what it says, because sometimes it's, it might not be what you want to hear. In this case, it is what we want to hear. But even when
let's pray. Let's pray.
Always a comfort because it's very truthful and very accurate and very divine. Very divine.
Yeah. Well, it is divine. It's actually, a lot of people will say astrology, it's the work of the devil. I can't look at that stuff. Well, speaking of our forefathers, the George Washington, I love to show this. This is actually a mural of George Washington laying the cornerstone of the Capitol Foundation, not the White House, or the Capitol Foundation. It was a great article out today where this is the day, October 13th, I think it was of 1792.
1792.
92, thank you for reminding me. Where George Washington actually laid the cornerstone of the White House. Now, this on the screen is the cornerstone being laid of the Capitol.
Right.
And notice, this is George Washington. Apparently, he was a really tall guy. He was like 6'4", 6'5". You can see he's pretty tall in this mural. Back then, we didn't have Polaroids, folks. So you had somebody with a paintbrush and a canvas, and that's how you got your picture. Yeah. So, but they were amazingly accurate on a lot of these depictions. So that's apparently what he looked like. And I always really have a lot of resonance with George Washington's background and history because a very unique individual, a lot of occult stuff around him. He actually said he had an angel visit him and warn him that the War of 1812 was coming through, the Civil War would be coming through. And he said the final war we'd be fighting would be on the plains of the United States against the Chinese. Now, I'm not here to bash the Chinese, but on the other hand, that's what was reported his visitations were. That was actually in his diary, apparently. So, really cool stuff. And what's interesting is Benjamin Franklin and George Washington, Madison, and many others of the original founding fathers were very steeped in the sacred Masonry stuff. Now, I know if you're Catholic, the Catholics hate the Masons, and there's all these rumors about the Masons, and that may be true. And I don't want to get into controversy on that, but I can't say, in my opinion, I shouldn't give my opinion, but I will, that literally, how could you write a constitution that gives freedom to all individuals? Doesn't matter your color, doesn't matter your race, doesn't matter your creed, and religious freedom like that if you were really serving the dark side of humanity. So, at least the Masons, I believe all secret societies get infiltrated, just like religions do. There's wonderful people in all religions. There's wonderful people in secret societies. Everywhere. But the spirits, the evil spirits tend to creep in and create dissension.
They do.
Like right now, you can see we're in a global descent to anarchy. We truly almost are.
Yeah.
Again, I keep saying, and I've said this on several podcasts, I think I said it in the last one with you, Ella, and that is there saving grace here besides even this question? Okay, we're not going to go up in a mushroom cloud, according to this. And again, if I'm wrong, I'll see you on the astral side, but hopefully we're not. But I think it's right. I really do. I've asked this question several times as news cropped its head.
Yeah. And also, when we look at our personal birth charts, it doesn't show we're going to leave here anytime soon. So
there's too many souls here having experiences. And that's why, again, I always drop back to my favorite diagram. And I've shown this diagram dozens and dozens of times. I didn't have it up, but I'll just flip it up real fast here. And that is, again, no matter what your religion, your race, your creed, God's above all creation. And the upper angelic forces are actually believed to sustain the entire molecular, and I think it's way beyond molecules, the entire existence of the Yetziratic universes, which are hundreds of dimensions below the divinity of where our souls are believed to be created. And I really believe that this model is quite accurate. Even the Vedantic scriptures parallel a creational myth somewhat close to this. This, of course, many people will recognize comes from the Judeo-Hebrew background. So, but long story short, the divinity is superior to the evil spirits that are cast down. And there's no question, there's a lot of demonic energy right now going on in these times. And we talked about that last podcast, that fascism gets brought in on these portals called the conjunctions of the great planets. And we certainly had a couple that have opened the portals, if you will. And there's been several people have talked about different elements of portals and the dimensional shifts and so on and so forth. So I really believe that
it's real.
You bet it's real. It's so accurate. It's creepy. I mean, I get it all the time. I do readings and people will say to me, well, I can't believe that that's going to happen. And they'll call me back up and say, my God, I can't believe it. The chart was right. I'm like, I know, I'm the same way. It's like,
we are.
I really, people might find this astonishing. I don't believe astrology. I really don't. I like science. I really like it when, okay, if that's what it says, I'm going to wait it out and see if it happens, and it does. That's what got me going back in the 70s in the ancient methods of interrogation astrology. I always mention this particular man. He's one of the more probably better known English astrologers. And that was, again, William Lilly. William Lilly was a court astrologer in England. And interestingly enough, he actually told King Charles that, don't go against Parliament, you're going to lose. And he did. He lost his head. So he has, and you have this book, Ella. And
I do.
I turned you onto this when we were studying. And essentially, he does what we call interrogation astrology. He actually mentions in his book that's here. I'll show it to you. I got it on the shelf right here. Look at this thing. It's like a New York telephone book. It's huge. And you can see all my notes in it. But you can see that same picture. Here's a better picture. This is
you've got the original. You've got the hardcover. I've got the paperback. Can't get the hardcover.
No, you can't get this anymore. I actually got this in the 80s, right after it came out. This third edition came out. The first edition was 1647, a little bit before my time. The second edition came out in 1659, and the third edition came out in 1985. I think I got it somewhere in the mid 80s like that, somewhere 86, 87. I was very fortunate to get this. And you can see I put book corners on it. It's a cool book. But, fascinating stuff. Here's another one I'll show you since we're in show and tell of books here.
Show and tell.
Show and tell. Here's something really cool. This is one of my favorite astrologers. In fact, if anybody ever wants to get this book, I'm promoting the author here, but it's called Abraham Ibn Ezra. And for the people who think astrology is the work of the devil, well, they better open up their Bibles, because this man, Ibn Ezra, is actually the commentator in many biblical commentaries at the bottom of your page, in the Psalms, in the Old Testament. Amazing, very amazing astrologer. Look what he did. He's got here Ibn Ezra on elections, like George Washington laying the cornerstone of the foundation, on interrogations, questions like we just asked. Are we going to go up in a washing play? Look at here. Here's another one. I just did a session yesterday with a doctor, and I hope he hears this podcast, because I want to tell him, I won't mention his name, but he really warmed my heart, because this is a medical doctor who's into pain medication, really helping people in severe pain. And he loves medical astrology. He says, Jeff, I'm so sick and tired of the only alternatives to surgeries and pharmaceuticals, when the vibration of herbs and natural vibrational energies of plants, reflexology, Reiki, natural healing methods. He's a wonderful man. And I turned him on to this. It's called medical astrology. See that right there, folks? Medical astrology. That's, my mother turned me on to this back in here. Got another show and tell. We can be here.
Well, your mom turned you on to astrology to begin with. Look at this.
Encyclopedia of Medical Astrology. Look at this, dude. This was put out in the 40s. That was put out in the 1100s. The last one I showed you, this was originally published in the 1100s. Over 1,000 years, about 1,000 years ago. So this one, what my mother turned me on to, in fact, this is my mother's book. You can see, that's a astounding looking picture there of that gentleman. So you can see here, Encyclopedia of, he was wonderful too. But this is just chock full of definitions and correlations to astrological configurations of transits and progressions. Now, the older astrologers like William Lilly, oh my God, just to crack open this book here for you, and I've shown you this, I can tell you over the years, I can't practice medicine. And I always tell people that, listen, I cannot give you medical advice. I'm not legal to do that.
Right.
But I'll tell you what the chart says and then go take it up with your doctor.
Take it from there. Yeah.
This right here is a table. It's kind of hard to see, but this is a table showing every position of the moon. And I've used this table. It's stunning. Stunning. In fact, we were just talking, Ella, before the show. I had a friend of mine who's a doctor who just passed away a few years ago. Wonderful man. He was dying of prostate cancer. And he said, Jeff, I've tried everything. He said, what could I do? He said, everything allopathic, everything naturopathic, you name it. He tried it all. And I said, Jim, go move on your sun line in astrolocation. And he did. And his PSAs dropped out of the sky. And the guy he was living with got a divorce and he had to sell the house. And then he had to leave where his sun line was. It was in Hawaii. And he ended up moving back to a place with his ex-wife, very bad lines. He was dead within 9 months. Really sad. And he asked me, he called me up. He says, you think I'm going to make it? And I don't like giving these answers, but the chart looked very dire. And what was I using? The same thing I was just using a few minutes ago to determine whether or not we're all going to go up in a mushroom cloud, which is interrogations. Interrogations. One of the most ubiquitous and powerful ancient astrology tools you can use. Just asking a question. Don't need your birth time. Don't need nothing. The only thing you need is to be rooted into what you're asking. If it comes from the heart and it's not trickery and just testing astrology.
It's got to be genuine. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So there you go. I thought we'd keep this one short today.
Good news.
Yeah. So Ella, if you have anything to say, please add to it.
Well, just of course, thank you all for listening. And we'd love it if you would leave your comments below. And if you have any specific questions for Jeff that he can possibly look at, we'll look at them all, and that would just be awesome, an awesome way for us all to communicate.
Yeah, we won't be able to get to all of them, but we'll randomly pick one and then try and bring it on the next podcast. So we'll kind of use a draw it out of the hat type of thing, because I'm probably only going to be able to
that'll work really well.
So what we'll do is we'll create a segment at the end of the podcast where hopefully your question will get picked out of kind of a lottery, and then and I'll let Ella pick it. Ella's going to pick it. So if it isn't yours, don't blame me. It's going to be her fault.
I'll pick it. That's right. Yeah.
So there we go.
Thank you all so very much.
You bet. Thank you.
Make sure to like and subscribe, please.
And make sure to meditate.
Going here.
Thoughts are things. And we all emit thought form elementals out of our third eye chakra.
That's right.
Good intentions, coming to a good resolution with this horrible war, and all that can make a big difference. Stay positive, and remember, we're all spiritual beings having a physical experience.
See you next time.
Thank you.